The lights flickered in the research vessel Extremophile's main laboratory. Dr. Han Sujai looked up from her computer screen, her eyes tired after 12 hours of watching data streams. The vessel floated deep in Europa's ocean, under kilometers of ice, where the water pressure could crush a submarine like a paper cup. Dr. Han, you need to see this, called lead Mayana from her workstation. Her voice was steady, but Sujai could hear the excitement in it. The organic sensors are picking up something strange. Suji walked over to Mayana's screen. The numbers didn't make sense at first. She blinked, then looked again. These readings, they're impossible. I've checked 3 times, Mayana said. Something is alive down here. Something big. Suji pressed the intercom button on the wall. Commander Park, please come to the main lab. While they waited, Suji and Mayana watched the readings climb higher. Whatever they had found was growing stronger. The lab's atmosphere was tense with excitement. Commander Park Ji-ho arrived 5 minutes later, followed by Dr. Kim Do-hyun, their environmental specialist. What have you found? Park asked, his face serious. Suji pointed to the screen. Life. Commander. Complex organic structures that shouldn't exist at this depth. The pressure here is enormous. But these organisms aren't just surviving. They're thriving. Do-hyun leaned in close to the screen, his eyes wide. The energy readings are off the charts. They're using the pressure somehow, maybe even feeding off it. The ship's systems engineer, Choi Ta-won, joined them. He had dark circles under his eyes from working long hours, but he smiled when he saw the data. The external cameras are ready, he said. We can get a visual if you want. Commander Park nodded. Do it. The main screen lit up with images from outside the ship. At first, they saw only the dark water. Then Ta-won adjusted the lights, and everyone in the lab gasped. Floating in the crushing depths were structures that looked like crystals made of light. They pulsed with soft colors, blue, green, and purple. Some were as small as a finger, others as large as a car. They moved in patterns, like they were dancing. They're beautiful, Mayana whispered. Suji was already taking notes. The structures appear to be colonial. See how they move together. And look at their outer shells. They must be incredibly strong to withstand this pressure. Do-hyun pointed to a cluster of readings on his tablet. The temperature around them is higher than the surrounding water. They're generating heat, but how? Commander Park watched the creatures for a long moment. Dr. Han, what are our options for studying them? We need samples, Suji said. But we have to be careful. These organisms are completely new to science. We don't know how they'll react to our presence. Ta-won raised his hand. I can modify one of our collection drones. Make it gentler, add more sensors. Give me 6 hours. Park nodded. Do it. Dr. Han, you and Dr. Kim prepare the lab for samples. Dr. Lee, keep monitoring those energy readings. If anything changes, I want to know immediately. As the team broke apart to begin their tasks, Suji stayed by the main screen. She watched the crystal-like creatures dance in the darkness. After 15 years of studying life in extreme environments, she had never imagined finding anything like this. In the crushing depths of Europa's ocean, where no life should exist, they had discovered something extraordinary. And this was only the beginning. The Extremophile's hull creaked under the intense pressure, reminding them all of where they were, farther from Earth than any human research team had ever gone before, about to study creatures that could change everything they thought they knew about life itself. Suji smiled. It was going to be a very interesting mission. Choi Ta-won's fingers moved quickly across his keyboard as he made final adjustments to the collection drone. The small machine floated in its testing tank, its new sensors glowing softly in the dim light. After 6 hours of non-stop work, he hoped it was ready. The drone's outer shell has been reinforced, he explained to the team gathered around him. I've also added pressure sensors and made the collection arms more gentle. We don't want to harm the creatures. Dr. Han Suji nodded, checking the drone's specifications on her tablet. The modifications look good. When can we deploy it? It's ready now, Taiwan said, pride clear in his voice. Commander Park Ji-ho stepped forward. Dr. Kim, what do the environmental readings show? Is it safe to proceed? Dr. Kim Do-hyun studied his screens carefully. The pressure is stable at 98 megapascals. That's like having 300 large buildings sitting on top of us. But the creatures seem comfortable with it. In fact, he paused, double-checking his data. They appear to be using the pressure somehow. Using it? Lead Mina asked, moving closer to see his screen. How? Look at these energy readings, Do-hyun pointed to a graph. When the pressure increases even slightly, their energy output goes up. They're converting pressure into power, but we don't know how. Commander Park made his decision. Launch the drone, but keep it at a safe distance at first. We need to see how they react to its presence. Taiwan carefully moved the drone from its tank to the launch tube. With a soft hiss, the tube filled with water, and the drone slipped out into the dark ocean. On the main screen, they watched the drone approach the crystal-like creatures. The beings continued their dance, seeming not to notice the small machine. Their colors shifted from blue to purple, then back again. Moving in closer, Taiwan announced, his voice tense with concentration. The drone edged forward. When it was about 10 meters from the nearest creature, something unexpected happened. The being's colors changed to a bright gold, and it moved toward the drone. Should I pull back? Taiwan asked quickly. Wait, Suji said, leaning forward. Look at its movement. It's not aggressive. It's curious. The creature circled the drone slowly, its crystal-like surface reflecting the drone's lights. More of the beings began to approach, creating a rainbow of colors in the dark water. The energy readings are changing, Mina reported. They're communicating with each other using some kind of pressure waves. Do-hyun's eyes widened as he studied the new data. This is amazing. They're not just surviving the pressure. They're thriving because of it. The pressure we thought would crush any living thing. They've turned it into their power source. Suji made a decision. Taiwan, can you extend one of the collection arms? Very slowly. Let's see if we can get a small sample. The drone's arm moved with careful precision. As it approached one of the smaller creatures, the being stayed perfectly still, its golden color unchanging. The collection cup at the end of the arm gently touched the creature's surface. Sample collected, Taiwan announced, bringing it in. As the drone retreated, the creatures followed it for a short distance before returning to their normal patterns. Their colors shifted back to blues and purples, and their dance continued. In the lab, the team gathered around the sample analysis chamber. Through the reinforced glass, they could see the small piece they had collected. It pulsed with the same golden light as its parent creature. Look at the molecular structure, Mina said, pointing to the analysis screen. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. The pressure isn't just failing to crush it. The molecules are actually using the pressure to become stronger. Sujai looked at her team, her eyes bright with excitement. We're going to need to rethink everything we know about life in extreme environments. These beings aren't just surviving here. They've made this impossible place their perfect home. Commander Park smiled slightly. Well done, everyone. Now the real work begins. Let's find out what else these remarkable creatures can teach us. Outside in the dark waters, the crystal beings continued their eternal dance, their secrets just beginning to unfold. The first warning came from deep within Europa's ocean. Dr. Kim Do-hyun noticed it during his regular morning check of the environmental sensors. The temperature readings were rising slowly but steadily. Commander Park, Do-hyun called out, his voice calm despite his concern. We have unusual thermal activity in the region. Commander Park Ji-ho walked to Do-hyun's station, his face serious as he studied the readings. How significant is the increase? Temperature has risen 2 degrees in the past hour. More concerning is the pressure. It's increasing as well. The extremophile's hull creaked loudly, as if emphasizing Do-hyun's words. Several crew members looked up nervously at the sound. Dr. Han Soo-jae emerged from the sample analysis lab, where she had been studying the crystal creatures. "The specimen is acting strange," she reported. "Its energy output has doubled in the last 30 minutes. Lee Mina checked her instruments. The creatures outside are moving differently too. Their pattern has changed. They're gathering in the direction of the thermal increase." Commander Park pressed the ship-wide communication button. "All personnel, this is Commander Park. We are experiencing unusual environmental conditions. Please secure all equipment and prepare for possible emergency procedures." The next hour was tense. The temperature continued to rise, and with it, the pressure. Choi Ta-won worked frantically at his engineering station, monitoring the ship's structural integrity. "Hull stress is approaching 90% of maximum tolerance," Ta-won announced. "We need to make a decision soon, Commander." Park looked at his team. "Dr. Kim, what's causing this?" "It appears to be a geological event," Do-hyun explained. "Possibly a hydrothermal vent opening up nearby. The question is, will it stabilize or get worse?" Suji was watching the main screen, where the crystal creatures had gathered in greater numbers. "Look at them," she said. "They're not trying to escape the heat or pressure. They're moving toward it." Mina checked her readings again. "Their energy signatures are stronger than ever. It's like they're feeding off the increased pressure." Another loud creak echoed through the ship, followed by a warning alarm. "Hull stress at 95%, Ta-won reported. Commander, we need to move to a safer depth." Park faced a difficult choice. Moving to a safer depth would protect the ship and crew, but they might lose this opportunity to study the creature's behavior during what appeared to be a significant event. "Dr. Han," he said, "how much time do you need to gather essential data?" Soo-jae calculated quickly. 20 minutes. Give me 20 minutes to run final scans and collect one more sample. This could be crucial to understanding their relationship with extreme conditions." Park looked at Ta-won. "Can the ship hold that long?" "Yes, but we can't stay any longer than that. And if the pressure increases significantly." "Understood." Park made his decision. "Dr. Han, you have 15 minutes. Not 1 second more. Dr. Kim, monitor those pressure readings constantly. Mr. Choi, begin preparations for ascent. Dr. Lee, record everything you can about their behavior." The team moved with focused efficiency. Suji and Mina worked together to gather data and collect samples. Do-hyun called out pressure readings every minute, while Ta-won prepared the ship for its emergency ascent. The crystal creatures continued to gather, their colors now a bright, pulsing red. The water around them seemed to shimmer with energy. 5 minutes, Park announced. Soo-jae secured the final sample in its pressure-controlled container. "Almost done." "Pressure still rising," Do-hyun reported. "Now at 105 megapascals." 2 minutes. The hull groaned again, louder this time. "Sample secured," Soo-jae called out. "All data recorded. Begin ascent," Park ordered. "Take us up, Mr. Choi. Slow and steady." As the extremophile began to rise, the team watched the crystal creatures on the main screen. They had formed a massive spiral pattern, their red glow illuminating the dark water like an underwater sunrise. "They're not just surviving the crisis," Suji said quietly. "They're celebrating it." The extremophile had moved to a safer depth, but Dr. Lee Mina could not stop watching the sample they had collected. Through the thick glass of the containment chamber, the small crystal creature continued to pulse with light. Its color had changed from red to a deep purple. "Dr. Han, please come to the lab," Mina called through the intercom. "Something is happening to the specimen." Dr. Han Soo-jae arrived quickly, followed by Dr. Kim Do-hyun. They gathered around the containment chamber, watching the creature with careful eyes. "The molecular structure is changing," Mina explained, pointing to her screen. Look at these readings. It's not just its color that's different. The creature is rebuilding itself from the inside out. Sujai studied the data. This is evolution happening right in front of us. But it should take thousands of years, not hours. The pressure change must have triggered it, Du Hyun said. He checked the environmental controls. The containment chamber is maintaining the same high pressure as where we found it. The creature thinks it's still in the crisis zone. They watched as the specimen's crystal structure began to shift. Small changes at first. A new angle here, a different pattern there. Then bigger changes started to appear. The creature's outer shell grew thicker, stronger. Commander Park entered the lab. "Report," he said simply. "Commander, we're witnessing rapid adaptation," Suji explained. "The specimen is changing its physical structure to better handle the increased pressure. It's learning and evolving in real time." Mina adjusted her instruments. "The energy readings are fascinating. Each change makes it more efficient at using pressure as a power source. It's not just adapting to survive, it's adapting to thrive." Choi Ta-won joined them, carrying his tablet. "The deep water cameras are still working," he said. "You need to see what's happening below." He connected his tablet to the main screen. The video showed the crystal creatures they had left behind. They were all changing, just like their captured specimen. The sea floor had become a light show of shifting colors and patterns. "They're all evolving together," Du Hyun said in wonder. "It's like they're sharing information about the best ways to adapt." Suji moved closer to the screen. "This changes everything we thought we knew about evolution. These creatures don't wait for random mutations over generations. They actively change themselves when their environment demands it. Could they teach us how to do that?" Mina asked quietly. "Think about it. If we could understand how they adapt so quickly, we could help Earth species survive climate change. We could help humans adapt to new planets." Commander Park listened to his team's excitement, but his face remained serious. "First, we need to understand what we're seeing. Dr. Han, what do you need?" "Time and data," Suji answered. "We need to document every change, every adaptation." "Mina, can you set up continuous molecular scans?" "Already on it," Mina replied, her fingers moving quickly across her keyboard. "I'll monitor the environmental conditions," Du Hyun added. "Maybe we can find out what triggers specific changes." Taiwan raised his hand. "I can modify our sensors to track their energy patterns better. If they're sharing adaptation information, maybe we can detect how they're communicating." The team worked through the night shift, watching their discoveries unfold. The specimen in the lab continued to change, its crystal structure becoming more complex with each passing hour. On the screens, they could see its relatives far below doing the same. "Life finds a way," Suji said softly, watching the crystal beings evolve. "But these creatures don't just find a way. They build one." Dr. Han Suji sat in the quiet of the research vessel's observation room, watching the crystal creatures through the reinforced windows. The extremophile had returned to its original depth now that the pressure had stabilized. The past 48 hours had changed everything they thought they knew about life. "I thought I might find you here," Dr. Kim Do-hyun said as he entered the room. He handed Sujai a cup of coffee and sat down beside her. "Look at them, Do-hyun," Suji said, pointing to the creatures. "We were wrong about everything. We thought extreme conditions were a challenge for life to overcome. But for them, these conditions are essential." Do-hyun nodded. "The latest pressure readings support your theory. They don't just tolerate the pressure. They need it. It's like oxygen for them." The door opened again, and Mina walked in carrying her tablet. "The molecular analysis is complete," she announced. "You're going to want to see this." Mina connected her tablet to the room's main screen. Complex diagrams appeared, showing the internal structure of their specimen. "See these patterns?" Mina pointed to several areas of the diagram. "The creature's entire body is designed to channel pressure. Every part of its structure helps convert pressure into energy." Commander Park and Choi Ta-won joined them. drawn by the discussion. What are the practical implications? Park asked. Sujai stood up and walked to the screen. Think about what this means. On Earth, we see extreme environments as barriers to life. Too hot, too cold, too much pressure. We assume these conditions make life impossible. But these creatures show us we're thinking about it backward. Backward? Ta-1 asked. Yes, Suji continued. These extreme conditions aren't barriers to life. They're opportunities. These creatures evolved to take advantage of conditions we thought were impossible to survive in. They turned our definition of extreme into their normal. Do-hyun pulled up his environmental data. That explains why they gathered around the thermal vent during the pressure increase. They weren't just surviving the crisis. They were feeding off it. Mina zoomed in on part of her diagram. Look at their molecular structure. It's perfectly designed for these conditions. If we put them in what we consider normal conditions, they would die. Our safe environment would be extreme for them. Commander Park listened carefully. So what does this tell us about the search for life in the universe? Suji smiled. It tells us we need to stop limiting our search to places that look like Earth. Life doesn't need Earth-like conditions. Life can adapt to use any conditions, even ones we think are impossible. And it's not just about finding life, Ta-1 added, his engineering mind working quickly. If we can understand how these creatures use pressure as energy, we could revolutionize our own technology. Deep sea stations, space colonies, anywhere we deal with extreme conditions. The team fell silent, watching the crystal beings dance in the crushing depths. Their colors shifted slowly from purple to blue, then back again. In the darkness of Europa's ocean, they had found more than just new life. They had found a new way of thinking about life itself. We came here looking for life that could survive extreme conditions, Suji said quietly. Instead, we found life that shows us there's no such thing as extreme in nature. There's just life, finding ways to thrive wherever it exists. Through the window, the crystal creatures continued their eternal dance, masters of an environment that humans had once thought impossible for life. They were not victims of their harsh world. They were its perfect children, born from the very forces that should have made their existence impossible. The screens in the Extremophile's main laboratory displayed a pattern that Dr. Kim Do-hyun had been studying for hours. It showed the movement of thermal currents and pressure waves in Europa's ocean. Something about it seemed familiar, but he couldn't understand why. Dr. Han. He called out to Suji, who was examining the crystal specimen. Could you look at this? I think I found something important. Suji walked over to his station. She looked at the pattern on his screen, then at the crystal creatures visible through the observation window. Her eyes widened. The patterns match, she said quietly. The way the creatures move. It's exactly like the ocean currents. Lee Mina joined them, bringing up her own data. Not just that, she added. Look at the timing of their color changes. They shift just before each pressure wave hits. Commander Park entered the laboratory, followed by Choi Ta-1. What have you found? The commander asked. Do-hyun adjusted his display to show more data. The creatures aren't just reacting to changes in their environment, he explained. They're predicting them, maybe even causing them. Causing them? Ta-1 asked. How is that possible? Suji moved to the main screen and brought up several images side by side. Look at these readings from the past week. Every time the creatures gather in large numbers, we see an increase in thermal activity. When they spread out, the activity decreases. They're controlling their environment, Mena said with growing excitement. Like bees controlling the temperature of their hive, but on a much larger scale. Do-hyun nodded. The pressure crisis we experienced wasn't a natural event. It was them, deliberately increasing the pressure to trigger their evolution. Commander Park looked through the observation window at the crystal beings. Are you saying they engineered that entire situation? Yes, Suji answered. And they're doing it constantly, on a smaller scale. These creatures aren't just adapted to extreme conditions. They're the ones creating those conditions. They're terraforming Europa's ocean to suit their needs. Taiwan studied the data with an engineer's precision. The energy required for that would be enormous. How do they generate enough power? Mina pulled up her molecular analysis. They work together. Each creature converts pressure into energy, then shares that energy with the group. The more pressure they create, the more energy they have to create even more pressure. It's a perfect system. A system they've been perfecting for who knows how long, Du Hyun added. While we've been studying them, they've been studying their environment. Every pressure change, every temperature shift. It's all part of their plan. Suji touched the glass of the specimen container gently. We thought we were observing simple organisms, but they're engineers, architects of their own world. They're reshaping this entire ocean to make it even more suitable for their kind of life. Commander Park was quiet for a moment, considering the implications. Could they reshape other environments as well? That's the real revelation, Suji said. These creatures don't just survive in extreme environments. They create them. They could potentially transform any environment into one that suits their needs. Through the observation window, the crystal beings continued their complex dance, their movements now revealed as something far more purposeful than anyone had imagined. They were not just inhabitants of their extreme world, they were its masters, shaping the very forces that had shaped them. In the crushing depths of Europa's ocean, humanity had discovered more than just alien life. They had found architects of the impossible, beings that proved that the line between adapting to an environment and creating it was far thinner than anyone had dreamed. Choi Ta-won stood in the engineering lab, surrounded by diagrams and prototype designs. For the past week, he had been studying how the crystal creatures converted pressure into energy. Now, he thought he could copy their method. The basic design is simple, he explained to Commander Park and the science team. We copy the crystal structure of their outer shell, but make it from special materials we can manufacture. Dr. Han Sujai examined the detailed drawings on Taiwan's screen. You think we can recreate their pressure conversion process? Not as efficiently as they do it, Taiwan admitted. But even a fraction of their ability would be revolutionary. Imagine deep-sea stations that power themselves using ocean pressure. Space stations that turn the vacuum of space into energy. Lead Mina had been quiet, studying her own research data. There's more, she said. The way their molecular structure responds to pressure. We could use that in medicine. The team turned to her with interest. She brought up detailed medical diagrams on her screen. Look at how they handle pressure, she continued. We could develop new treatments for high blood pressure, deep-sea pressure sickness, even some types of brain injuries. Their adaptation mechanisms could help human bodies cope with extreme conditions. Dr. Kim Do-hyun nodded in agreement. And their environmental engineering abilities. We could use those principles to help restore damaged ecosystems on Earth. Their methods of controlling temperature and pressure could help us fight climate change. Commander Park listened carefully to his team. Over the past weeks, he had watched their discovery grow from a scientific curiosity into something that could change human civilization. We need to test these ideas carefully, he said. Taiwan, start with a small prototype of your pressure converter. Mina, work with medical research teams back on Earth. Du Hyun and Suji, focus on the environmental applications. Suji walked to the observation window, watching the crystal beings. They've survived here for millions of years, maybe billions. All this time, they'd been perfecting technologies we're just beginning to understand. Taiwan joined her at the window. Look at how their shell structure catches the light, he said. I've already designed solar panels based on their pattern. They could be 30% more efficient than our current technology. Mina was typing rapidly on her computer. Their healing abilities are amazing too. When we damaged a small piece during collection, it repaired itself within hours. Imagine medical devices that could repair themselves, or new treatments for healing human tissues. Do-hyun brought up a global map on the main screen, and their environmental control abilities could help us protect coastal cities from rising seas. We could use their pressure management techniques to prevent flooding and stabilize ocean temperatures. The team worked through the day and into the night shift. In the engineering lab, Taiwan built his first prototype, a small device that generated power from pressure changes. In the medical lab, Mina developed new theories about cellular repair. Du Hyun and Suji mapped out plans for environmental restoration projects. Commander Park watched his team with pride. They had come to Europa looking for simple signs of life. Instead, they had found teachers. Ancient beings whose mastery of their extreme environment could help humanity solve some of its greatest challenges. Through the window, the crystal creatures continued their endless dance, unaware that their ways of surviving were about to help another species thrive in places they never could before. 1 month after their initial discovery, the research vessel Extremophile prepared for its return journey to Earth. The ship's storage units held carefully preserved specimens, detailed data recordings, and working prototypes of new technologies inspired by the crystal creatures. Dr. Han Soo-joy stood in her laboratory, carefully packing the last of her research materials. The past month had changed not just their understanding of life, but their vision of humanity's future among the stars. Commander Park entered the lab, carrying his final mission report. "The last transmission from Earth arrived," he said. "The science community is eager for our return. Research teams worldwide are preparing to study our findings." "It's hard to leave," Sujai admitted, looking through the observation window at the crystal beings. "We've learned so much, but there's still more to discover." Mina joined them, her tablet displaying messages from medical research centers. "3 major hospitals have already requested samples for study," she said. "They believe the creature's pressure adaptation abilities could revolutionize treatment for stroke patients." Dr. Kim Do-hyun walked in with Choi Taewon. They had spent the last week testing Taiwan's pressure conversion prototype. The small device now powered several of the ship's monitoring systems, using only the natural pressure of the ocean around them. "The engineering teams on Earth are excited," Taiwan said. "They think we can have the first pressure-powered deep-sea station ready for testing within 2 years. Space stations will take longer, but the potential is there." Do-hyun nodded. Environmental scientists are equally interested. The creature's ability to control their environment could help us protect and restore damaged ecosystems. We might be able to save coral reefs, manage ocean temperatures, even restore melted glaciers. Commander Park gathered his team around the main screen for one last observation of their discovery. The crystal beings floated in the dark waters, their colors shifting in patterns they now understood were complex environmental calculations. "When we came here," Park said, "we thought we were exploring the limits of where life could exist. Instead, we discovered that life has no limits, only opportunities we haven't recognized yet." Suji began her final recording. "The crystal beings of Europa have taught us that what we call extreme conditions are simply different possibilities for life. They showed us that adaptation isn't just about surviving harsh conditions. It's about transforming those conditions into advantages." Mina added her medical observations. "Their ability to thrive under crushing pressure, to transform that pressure into energy, and to repair themselves, will change medicine forever. We're not just learning about alien life, we're learning new ways to save human lives. And their engineering principles will help us build better spacecraft, better deep-sea stations, better solar panels," Taiwan said. "They're teaching us how to live in places we thought were impossible to inhabit." As the Extremophile began its departure procedures, the team watched the crystal beings one last time. The creatures seemed to respond to their leaving, gathering near the ship in a spectacular display of shifting colors: blue, purple, gold, and colors humans had no names for. "We came searching for simple life in an extreme environment," Commander Park said. "Instead, we found beings that will help humanity reach the stars. Their legacy will live on through every new technology we develop, every medical treatment we create, every environmental challenge we solve." The crystal beings of Europa had shown humanity that the universe was not a harsh place waiting to be conquered. It was a vast collection of opportunities, waiting for life clever enough to embrace them. As the extremophile began its journey home, it carried not just specimens and data, but a new vision of humanity's future, one where no environment was too extreme and no challenge was insurmountable.